Good afternoon. It's February the 4th, 1999. I'm Mayo Livingston, and Tom Bush and I this afternoon are interviewing Jim Stone with relation to his experiences of World War II. Jim, tell us a little bit. You were in the Army Air Corps, which back then was a part of the Army. Tell us a little bit about your training when you joined. I believe you joined with a group from Virginia. That was your home state. And we'll let you pick it up from there and tell us how you were trained and how you got to Bainbridge.
Well, thank you. I was very fortunate I finally wound up here, but I am a native Virginian, and I took my aviation cadet exams in 1942 and was entered in the United States Army Air Force. Army Air Corps, right. In January of 1943, I reported to Richmond along with 500 other Virginia boys who had passed their aviation cadet exam, and we were sent from there directly to Nashville, Tennessee for classification. We were there about 10 days, and I was classified as a pilot. With the bombardiers and navigators also obtained their classification there. I would say about 250 of us left Nashville for Albany, Georgia, for pre-flight at Maxwell Field in Montgomery. We were there a month going through cadet training, and I still think that we had the kind of training that the new cadets had at West Point, because they really worked us over there. But after that, we went to Albany to Dar Aero Tech Primary Flight School. We had about 14 to 15 weeks there. That was primary, and that is where I soloed. I came from there to Bainbridge for about...
Tell us about the airplane, the particular airplane that you used at Dar Aero Tech. That was an open cockpit.
Yeah, it was a Stearman.
Two-wing, or bi-wing.
Bi-wing. Stearman PT-13, no, PT-17. It was a Stearman bi-wing. And
open cockpit.
Open cockpit, that's right. And that's where I learned, where I soloed. I started learning to fly, as I found out later. I came from there to Bainbridge Air Base, which was a basic flying school. And incidentally, the classes by that time were made up of, there were about 160 upperclassmen, about 160 lowerclassmen. And we spent half our time as lowerclassmen and half the time as upperclassmen. We were here about 15 weeks. I was in an accelerated program, and that was in July and August of 1943. They were needing pilots badly, and I had some experience with, and I had signed up to go into multi-engine. I wanted to fly a bomber, and so I was in a group here at Bainbridge that had some advanced training before we went on to advance. And from Bainbridge I went back to Albany to Turner Field for my advanced training, and got my wings and commission December the 5th, 1943. And Colonel Eddie Rickenbacker was spoke to the class.
How many was in the class?
Well, in that class there were each class had around anywhere from 150 to 200 men in it, and I don't remember exactly how many there were of us, but even Mary Bauer, who I was courting at the time, came up to see me graduate.
She pinned your wings on.
She pinned my wings on.
And Mary Bile was a Bainbridge girl.
Bainbridge girl,
And,
that's right.
And she later became Miss Jim Stone.
That's right, after I got back from overseas.
Well, when you were at tournament, did you learn to fly multi-wings, multi-wing training?
Yeah.
Took you Jim, how many?
Engine.
Multi-engine,
Yeah.
I'm sorry. You got the idea of the 500 guys, and this is just a side bit. The 500 guys that left with you from Virginia, how many of them probably received their wings? Have you had?
I really can't answer that question. I kept up with a few boys. Even one of my closest friends even washed out in classification because I don't know why, but they didn't accept it. And he was shot down, and he went to gunner school. Boy from Marion, Virginia, went to gunner school and went into a bomber crew somewhere and was shot down and killed. I knew that he was dead even before I graduated from flight school.
Did you keep up with many of the guys that graduated with you? Did you? But
No.
None of you stayed together.
No. They just spread everywhere. I hardly saw again anybody that I graduated with. The Air Force and the Army has a way of dispersing folks out.
The only person you really kept up with was Mary Bile from Bainbridge, Georgia.
Yes, I did.
Well, after you left Albany, you were then an officer.
Awesome.
And you were a pilot. And where were you?
I was assigned to Drew Field in Tampa, Florida, where the crew was put together. And to be perfectly frank, I was a co-pilot at this time, had my co-pilot training there at Drew Field, and the whole crew was put together, which consisted of 4 officers and 6 enlisted men. We have pilot, co-pilot, bombardier, and navigator were the officers. And then gunners, were also radio operators and engineers. From after we had our training together, we left. We were sent to Savannah, Hunter Field, and picked up a brand new plane. Flew from there to Trinidad to Belém to Natal, which is out on the east end of Brazil, I believe it is. And the distance from that point to Dakar, North Africa, was the shortest distance across the ocean, Atlantic Ocean. And that was about a 14 or 15 hour flight, but we reached Dakar. And
did you fly in a group, or you?
No, individual plane. Didn't see another plane. We took off sometime about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and flew the Atlantic and got over there. It was dark, just about dark when we got to Dakar. From Dakar we flew to Marrakech. That's where there were a lot of planes being ferried to the Far East and so forth, and I saw my first B-29 on that field. And I didn't know that anything could be that large, but it was large compared
but
to...
it was going down to the Far East.
It was going to India.
India.
Yeah, and that area. From Marrakech we flew to Algiers. And each place we stopped off for a day or two because they had a lot of planes going over, and so only a certain number could go. Then from Algiers we flew to Tunis, and then from Tunis up into Italy to Foggia, which was the base.
Is that when your squadron was put together at Foggia?
No, we joined the 99th Bomb Group, which had already was there. They'd been there 2 or 3 months after the line, as they called it, moved north. The Germans moved back, then they established air bases in southern Italy in early 1943, as I recall.
But were you put in as a replacement, or were they forming this new group?
I was a replacement. We were a replacement. Now, when I got overseas, I got my first pilot rating, and then while I was flying missions, I became the first pilot.
But all your missions were flown out of Fort G.
Yes, right. I had the unusual experience of flying co-pilot for, I don't even remember the colonel's name, but he led the 15th Air Force on a raid, and I was his co-pilot. All I did was sit there. He flew it all the way. But I felt like big stuff leading the Air Force, and it's been a hell of a shape if he died on it.
Well, where did you start off on your missions over there? I mean, you guys loaded up probably, you didn't use incendiaries, you just used explosive bombs.
Yeah, we didn't use any incendiaries. My squadron consisted of we kept up 15 planes or so, but there'd be 9 in the squadron. And we were briefed early in the morning of where we were going to fly and what the mission was. We'd ride out to the airstrip in a Jeep or some vehicle, and we would all line up and take off and form in formation. That squadron would be joined by other squadrons to make up the 99th Bomb Group. And the 99th Bomb Group might, on a big mission, there'd be another bomb group and another bomb group and another bomb group, so that we'd have 150, 200 bombers in the air at one time. Now that wasn't every day.
But did you participate in any of the bombardment, say in Salerno? Well, of course, they'd already done Salerno. That was all the landings.
Only along that line, it reminds me of one mission that my group had. We flew up to Kesselring's headquarters. He was headquartered in a side of a mountain outside of Rome.
Tell us who Kesselring was.
He was one of the Germans, high-ranking German
He was in charge of all the Germans in Italy.
In Italy, that's right. And our intelligence found out where his headquarters are, and so they decided to go get Kesselring. That was the man. That's what we were after. With mission was flown at about 12,000 feet. Ordinarily, we bombed at 30. But we went up just south of Rome, or it was kind of southwest of Rome, and bombed out Kesselring's headquarters. But a few days later, we learned that we didn't get Kesselring. He was in Rome visiting, having a good time. So we were told.
Well, where was Fort G? Must have been south of Naples, or?
No, it's east of Naples. If you recall, Italy is in the shape of a boot.
Yeah.
And Fort G is over on the Adriatic coast, and where the heel of the boot is.
Okay, all right.
So that's where the 15th Air Force.
When you say you bombed from 30,000 feet, could you be pretty accurate at that?
Well, we thought so. We hope so. But
you never got any lower than that.
I have some pictures of bombs hitting the target. Yes. And along that line on the mission I was shot down on, we get to that a little bit, we had a cameraman with us. So ordinarily there were 10 people in the plane, but this cameraman picked the wrong plane that day to ride with.
But you didn't do any bombing for what we would call close air support, or bunting ahead of the infantry or anything like that.
No,
That
no,
was
we
too,
didn't do
that was
that,
too
no.
involved.
There was no tactical bombing. You
No
did
tactical.
mostly strategic.
Tactical. No, that's
Yeah.
right.
That was the word I was looking for, Tom.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, obviously, the Allies were very interested in knocking out the Ploesti oil field.
Yeah,
And that was probably assigned to you somewhere, your group, to.
correct. The Ploesti oil fields was one of the main sources of power for the Axis powers. And there was a large oil field there, and refinement. And we were, of course, after the refinery. This was on my 19th mission, but I'll back up a little bit and tell you that I flew remember a mission flying into southern France. We bombed something over there, I've forgotten what. And I told you about Kesselring's headquarters, and we flew, I flew a mission into Austria and one into Hungary in that area. But most of the missions were flown over in the Balkans, and the main target was either oil fields or oil refineries or manufacturing plants of some kind. And I flew, I can recall 3 different missions into Romania, but on my 19th mission on June the 17th, while bombing the Ploesti oil fields, my plane was hit.
Was that the first time you had bombed been on a mission to bomb the Ploesti?
Yeah, that was my first mission to Ploesti, and my only, of course. But it was not the original bombing of the Ploesti oil fields took place on August the 1st, 1943, and was flown out of North Africa. And I think it was out of Libya where they flew from. And it was flown by 24s.
B-24.
B-24s. Liberators, that's right. And they flew at low level. It was flown low level all the way from North Africa into Romania. And that low level part is what gave them a lot of trouble, because they were trying to get under in the radar and not be detected coming. But when they got up into Romania to the point where what we call IP, you pick a town and then go to the target from that town, there was some confusion there, so that some group came in different directions and got in over the Ploesti oil fields at, they were flying at 50, 100 feet. Yeah, it was down there, and a lot of the planes got blown up by their own bomb explosion from other planes that had dropped.
Wouldn't you think that had an effect on the decision probably to go to a high altitude?
Oh yes, that had
you fellas got
yeah,
into it.
That had a lot to do with it. Of course, it was just one of those missions that they Allies wanted to pull off and prove that we could do something, but it was too far away and too low for it to be as successful as we'd like for it to be. However, I have pictures of the refineries being knocked out. I've got some good pictures of that.
On that
first mission. But
the losses were very heavy.
Yeah. But of course, when we moved into North Africa, I moved out of North Africa into southern Italy, then we were much closer, and that's when they started the high altitude bombing in that area, or over in the Balkans.
Well, did you have any air cover from the American fighter planes?
Oh, yeah.
Or was that did the Germans, they were still very active?
They were active. But we had P-51s and P-38s were with us all the way.
So all the way?
Yes, sir. They were there. And we saw a lot of dogfights along with being shot down. But our initial, we bombed, as I say, Palesti on the 17th of June was the first. 44 was my first trip, or was my trip to Pulaski, and the only one, of course, when I was shot down.
Were you hit before or after you had unloaded your bombs?
We were hit over the target just after we had dropped our bombs. We had dropped our bombs, but the flak was very heavy, and we got flak knocked out the right inboard engine. There's 4-engine plane, B-17. It got one engine and damaged another. And we started losing speed and dropping back, and a fighter shot out another engine. And within 20 minutes, we were down to one engine, but we were about 35,000 feet. And so we could stay airborne with that one engine and gradually lose altitude. Now, I still have a vivid memory of seeing that, my group going off, and we were sitting there dropping back.
Were any other airplanes hit that day?
I can't answer your question. I don't remember. That's 50-some years ago. If I knew, I'd forgotten.
But
I was thinking about something else about that.
Did your gunners ever get credited with shooting down any German aircraft?
I don't recall. I really don't. I know that we shot it a lot. I heard them and saw them shooting, but I don't recall. You know, and it's pretty hard in a group where you see a fighter hits, you don't know which plane or gunner under which plane got it. So I couldn't say positively that any of our gunners ever shot one down. But when we gradually lost altitude, and I'll go back to something that I saw in advanced flying school. While I was in advanced flying school, we had training films showing B-17s coming back into England shot up, and it showed some of them coming in and belly landing, and Romania being full of wheat fields, great plains of wheat and corn and so forth, agricultural area in the western part of Romania. To me, it looked like the place to sit down, and that's what we did. We belly landed, as we called it, in the wheat field.
Now, all your men, all 10 of you, nobody was hit. None of you.
Yeah.
And you
Someone was hit. As I believe I mentioned before, we had a cameraman. He was taking pictures of the bombing that day. He just happened to be assigned to our plane, so he was unfortunate that day to be with us. But he wasn't hurt. No one was hurt.
And you gave them the choice to either stay with you, and you'd made up your mind to try to set it down.
Yeah,
but some of them did bail out.
Everybody had the choice of somewhere around 10,000 feet, 12. We could see the Danube River ahead of us, way out there. We knew where it was. We wanted to get across the Danube because we thought we would be in Yugoslavia. Unfortunately, if we had it would have been unfortunate if we had crossed the Danube, gotten that far, because Albania comes up over there. At a certain point, Yugoslavia joined it, but Albania, they were not very friendly to Americans at that time either. But at any rate, we saw that we couldn't make the Danube or get across, so I gave the crew members the opportunity to bail out and crash land. I'll never forget my engineer, a great big old tall boy from California, Bainbridge was his name. He said, Lieutenant, put it down that wheat field, put it down there, I don't want to jump. That was
Well, how many of them did jump?
two, the bombardier and the navigators, they were the two smart ones. They decided they would bail out, which they did, and they landed safely. I can tell you what happened about that later. At any rate, when we hit the plane, it just slid in on its belly.
In a wheat field.
In a wheat field, it just really, just like landing, it just, oh, there's a lot of noise, you know, scraping, but it stayed straight and just settled down.
You had the wheels up, I guess.
Oh yeah, landed with the wheels up, yeah.
And the turret gunner was out of his.
Oh yeah,
he was out.
That belly turret gunner, he was up, standing up, he wasn't down there. And when we hit the ground, immediately we saw peasants coming from all directions. And we were supposed, for instructions, to burn the plane, set it afire. And we put some gasoline on a parachute and dropped it down into the tank, shot some flares into it and ran like, you know, but we didn't get it, we didn't set it on fire. And people, they started hollering at us, and I'll have to tell you about my engineer and I we didn't know where we were going. We just run away from the plane and going somewhere.
You guys didn't try to stay together except you and the engineer? I mean, the rest, it was
everybody was working that, but we thought we had the fire and we were going to get away from the explosion and get away from there, period. But we could see people coming, and they started hollering at us and so forth, and there was what I would call a foreman, or overseer of a group out there. He was an intelligent one that had some education, and there were two soldiers that happened to be out there, the Romanian soldiers. So they hollered and motioned for us to come back. Vandermeer and I were walking back, and he had a canteen on his belt. Well, you can imagine how dry my mouth was. I said, Bandit, let me have one more drink of water. Put on a drink of water before whatever happens is going to happen. And he took it off and handed me that canteen, and they thought I had a grenade. And a shot went over my head, and I never got a drink of water for about an hour or two after that.
Well, where were the rest of your men?
Well, we were all just going different directions, and we all came back because they motioned for us, the head man for us to come, and we went. We got, there were 9 of us there because bombardier and navigator weren't there. They had parachuted out, and they loaded us on a 1937 model Chevrolet 1.5-ton truck and hauled us into a little town of Balls, B-A-U-L-S, I think the way it's spelled, about like Climax. And people just gathered around, they looked at us and so forth, and that's when a Romanian sergeant came up who spoke English. He was actually an attorney and had been educated in England. And he told us that what was going to happen, that we'd be taken up to Bucharest to a prisoner of war camp. And that was quite a relief. He assured us that we wouldn't be mistreated. And the next morning, they put us up.
It was this late in the afternoon?
Well, we were on the ground by 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. but I'd say it's about 12, as I recall. They fed us some fish, ooh, some kind of bread there in the little school building. But we were housed in this same town for a couple of days. After the first night, about the middle of the next morning, the sirens started blowing because they were coming back bombing. And those people didn't know but what they'd be bombed to. Well, of course, I knew they weren't going to bomb a little town like that, but they didn't know. So everybody in town goes down by the riverside. It's a pretty good sized creek, what it is, and got a lot of bulrushes out there and so forth. And they marched us down there with all the townspeople gathered around, and I was sitting there just waiting for it to clear. Everybody was. And I heard, Jim, is it all right for us to come out? And it was the bombardier and navigators. They were hid down there. I swear that's the way it happened. And what had happened, they were walking. They didn't know where they were going. But nightfall caught them, and it caught them at this stream that they couldn't get across. So they spent the night out there in the bushes. And they were hungry and ready to join us.
They didn't have any idea of trying to get out of Romania on foot, I feel sure, did they?
No.
So at that time you all were back together?
All back together. All 11 of us.
But you wasn't mistreated or anything like that, I mean, they
certainly weren't.
No. Well, didn't they put you on a truck and took you to Bucharest?
Yeah, they used that same Chevrolet truck and hauled us to Bucharest, which must have been 100, 150 miles, something like that. And we were interrogated by the Germans when we got to Bucharest. The German officer interrogated us individually. And after they got through with us, they turned us over to the Romanians. And we were marched somewhere down several streets till we came to this school building, which had been a boarding school, about 3 stories tall. And that's where the officers were housed, POW officers. And the enlisted men later were taken on to a hospital where they were housed. But while we were walking down the street, marching down the street, all of a sudden we heard people saying, "Hey, the guy, when'd you get it?" Looked up in the building, these Americans hanging out the window and hollering at us, "Glad to see you, hope nobody's hurt," that sort of thing. Said, "When you get in, before they search you, hide your money." And I had about $50 on me. And I put some under my shirt here and some of my belt around here. But when we got inside, we set off in the corner of the school lot, and the guards, they didn't know what we were doing. So they weren't too smart, but they were nice, which is great. I hid my money, and that came in pretty well later on in buying food and so forth.
How many more Americans were there, Jim? Do you remember?
There were 1,200 Americans in Romania when when Romania capitulated.
1,200.
1,200. 100 of them were survivors of that August 1st, 1943 mission. There were only 100 of them. But we didn't see them until they brought them over to join up with us, to get us out, get us back to Italy.
Well, most of them, I feel sure all of them were survivors from aviation.
Oh yes, everybody there, to my knowledge, was a Air Force enlisted man or officer.
And you didn't have any idea of trying to put on escape, y'all? No, or did you?
You want me to tell you about some that tried to escape? they had, every now and then they have a count to be sure that nobody's gotten out. And they count us out of the building and count us back in. And 4 men, when they got all over in one corner, crawled over the fence and they didn't catch it. And they just started walking in Bucharest. That was late one afternoon. I don't know the details on what happened during the night, but the next morning, when they were walking, trying to get out of Bucharest, a prostitute encountered them. And you know what you want to and she realized that they weren't Romanians and notified the police, and they were captured immediately.
That's a good story. And they were brought back, I feel.
Oh yeah, they came in that late the next afternoon. They were brought back in.
Well, it couldn't have been too long. You were 4 months before Romania surrendered. And is that right from the...
Yeah.
You were
they
shot down in June.
shot down in June, and Romania capitulated in late August. And the Russians had started their drive. When they got within shelling distance of Bucharest, the Romanians capitulated. Of course, the Germans didn't like that, and they immediately started fighting the Romanian soldiers and the German detachment, whatever was there. But the Romanians captured them, and the Germans bombed the city itself for 3 days.
And you all were there?
We were there, yeah. They came in with a wave of bombers and bombed the city once, and then for the next 3 days they kept one bomber up there, and every now and then he'd drop a bomb. They just harassed them. And but after the 3rd day, we were moved to a Romanian garrison outside of Bucharest. And that, when this took place, one of our commanding officer, and the ranking officer, who was a lieutenant colonel over there in our prison camp, had a Romanian flyer fly him back to his base, to the American base in Italy. And with that, when he got there, they set up communications. They flew some planes over there and set up communications between Bucharest and Foggia to work out the getting us out.
Well, now, how were you listed as missing or prisoner of war with your parents or your next of kin?
I was
Missing
in action.
Missing in action.
Yeah, yeah.
You did they ever advise them that you had been that you were a prisoner?
I think I was going to show you something. Maybe I think I got it here. I was given a postcard by the Romanians to write my family.
And this is what you sent them?
That's this is what I sent them.
So they knew you.
What happened? My family received notice from the War Department that I was missing in action. I was shot down on June the 17th. I got mailed this card July 1st. That's the only card I was received to mail. I got home to Marion, Virginia, and I got home about October the 5th or something like that. And you want me to go? I got home October the 5th, and when I went down to the mailbox, this card came.
You got it?
Got it.
You want to hear what's on there or not?
Yeah. My dear mother, well, here, you read it. I mean,
My dear mother and dad, this was written on June 26, 44. First of all, I hope that you have not been too worried over me, and that mother is home from the hospital and not too upset. I am fine and in the best of health. We are treated real well. More like guests than prisoners, except for the confinement. We are all together except Lieutenant Beals, who did not fly with us that day. Another man is with us in his place. Not a single one of us were even scratched, not even a minor injury. We really cheated death this time. You would agree if you knew our story. However, God was with us. Do not concern yourself over me. I will be all right. Please notify everyone of my whereabouts and give all my love. Notify Mary and send my love to her. I will write Mary when I am issued another card for writing. I hope all goes well with the farm. All goes well with farm work, Dad. I hope that my promotion goes through so that I will be a first lieutenant when I get home. Love, Jim.
but they didn't get that call.
No, we lived in the country, and I went down to the mailbox and
Well, tell us, after you got back to Italy, the war still bumbled on through until 1945. Did you get on? Did they assign you to another airplane, or?
No. When they flew us out of Bucharest back to our base, and from our base, all PWs were not supposed to go back into service in the European theater, so we all were sent home. I got back to Marion, Virginia, around probably October the 1st, and
1944.
1944. I spent some time with my family, and then of course Mary came up to visit, and we decided we'd get married there. I mean, she agreed to marry me, said yes, but I had to come to Bainbridge to ask for her hand. You know, that's the way it's done.
Oh yeah.
And so we were married at the chapel here at the base chapel, on November the 1st, 44. From there, we went to Miami Beach to a rest camp for PWs. I spent a month there, and then was assigned to, about 2 months, and then I was assigned to Moody Air Force Base in Valdosta, where I went through the instructor school and started instructing in advanced flying school. And
You were instructing people, kids to fly.
yeah,
For multiple.
by that
I mean,
time,
multi-engine.
yeah, mostly. By that time, they had placed B-25s in advanced flying school, so that was really speeding them up, and I became an instructor in B-25s
And
Moody
Moody?
Air Force. Yeah, and this of course was in 45, and the war
Ended in April.
well, it ended in April in Europe.
Europe.
And in September in
Right.
yeah.
But that, after you stayed at Moody the rest of the time.
Yeah.
And then when were you, when did you get out?
I was released in March of '46, and from there I went to the University of Georgia, finished college. That's where I first met you, I'm
It
pretty
was.
sure.
You went to air school and I was in forestry.
Right.
It's been a long time.
Both
Yeah.
those buildings right
That's right.
side by side.
Well, Jim, this has been wonderful, and it's your whole career now is on tape. And with that, we want to appreciate, and the library appreciates you doing this, and this is for history and posterity. And thank you, and thank you
Thank
for
you
the
very
show.
much.
See you.
It's my pleasure.